That Scottish play. What is Shakespeare driving at? What are the themes, his truths about life, or his ideas about life revealed through Macbeth? Our driving questions: who prevails and how? Why do humans commit evil acts even when we know they are evil? Why do we do it anyway? What is revealed or brought to light in this play? What truth about human nature? And of course, with tragedy always, can we pity Macbeth? And do we feel fearful that we ourselves might make the same mistakes? Not the mistake of killing King Duncan, but the mistake of falling to the pressures of temptation and ambition. Every moral decision has its consequences. Let's think of some of the moral decisions of this play. Who makes the decisions? What process goes into making them? Like, I'm thinking about Macbeth's decision to believe the witches, Macbeth's decision to kill King Duncan, Lady Macbeth's decision to convince Macbeth to kill King Duncan, Banquo's decision to be less skeptical of Macbeth. Maybe Banquo should have right away decided, oh, I don't trust this guy. Banquo's decision not to trust the witches. All of these moral decisions end up having consequences. Let's examine a few of those consequences. Macbeth is never able to enjoy the fruits of his labor. He never relishes being king, especially since he wanted it so badly. But he's too busy being terrified, being full of scorpions. His mental anguish begins even before the crime is committed. He is tormented. He's hallucinating even before he commits the crime. After he commits the crime, he can't sleep anymore. He can't accept a blessing anymore. Mental anguish. Lady Macbeth has consequences too. She can't wash away her guilt, that out damned spot speech. She can never wash away all of that blood, and it does lead her to ending her own life. She is so tormented. Macbeth has murdered sleep. He's no longer able to rest. Lady Macbeth and Macbeth are not seen together in later acts. Like there's no room for the good things of life anymore. They have a strong relationship at the beginning of this play. Macbeth calls Lady Macbeth my dear partner in greatness. He calls her my dearest Chuck. That's endearing, you guys. They have a strong relationship. They love each other. But they don't have that. There's no room for goodness after they cross that line and cross into that territory of ambition and temptation. We see self-control versus surrendering to nerves when under pressure of these consequences. Lady Macbeth decides to surrender. Her sleepwalking shows she perhaps only subconsciously gets it, like subconsciously she gets what I did was wrong. Her death shows she does get it, and she has surrendered. She fed herself on daydreams of ambition. Have you ever dreamed about winning something big, about striking it rich? So is she, and that has fed her decisions. Her mistake is that she mistakes the courage of fantasy for the power of bearing the consequences of the realities of guilt. She succumbs to the fantasy rather than the reality of the guilt that she's going to feel. Macbeth loses control. He starts with self-control and then he loses control of himself before he commits the crimes. But we do see him under control, very logical in the first part of the play. In Act 1, he's thinking very logically about, should I kill the king? There are consequences. And then he loses that. He no longer thinks logically. He is out of control. Macbeth does start the play as a hero, and he ends up a tyrant. He falls a long way. He's an exalted hero. Macbeth is described as a good person. Lady Macbeth says he's too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way, meaning he's too kind to do what needs to be done to become king. Macbeth begins the play as a really good person, honorable, kind, respected, courageous, but then he becomes a serial murderer. And I have to emphasize, this is not a story about a monster. This is a story about a man, a really good, really respected man who becomes a monster. And what drives him to that? And is that something that we all can sympathize with, can pity? What drives a person to commit evil? Shakespeare seems to be saying that we're not born evil, but that we all may have the capacity to become evil. that power, ambition, and temptation can be corrupting powers? And if so, are we accountable for our evil behavior? I'm still going to argue yes, but can we pity Macbeth? Can we pity the mistakes that he makes, because we can understand how it is part of human nature to make those mistakes, to succumb to temptation and ambition? And so if you're thinking to this first bullet, if you're thinking yes, then you're thinking, yes, I pity Macbeth, and this is a successful tragedy. If you're down here, though, some people just have bad judgment and they deserve their fate. Macbeth screwed up huge and he is a loser. Well, then this is not a successful tragedy, because you do not pity Macbeth. We have to think about temptation. Temptation is a driving force in this play. And yes, we can argue that no one forces Macbeth's hand. No one causes him to make the wicked decisions. He voluntarily surrenders himself to kill King Duncan. He says, I go, and it is done. No one forces him, but temptation is a huge part of why he does it. Does Shakespeare imply that fate causes him to make the decisions he makes? And in this case, temptation is Macbeth's fate. Notice how the mindset about fate has shifted since Sophocles' time. It more closely resembles our current Western mindset about fate, that we individuals, we are much more in control. But at the same time, Shakespeare seems to be warning us humans about temptation, ambition, greed, and its corrupting powers. What are we willing to do to get what we want? And about the danger of crossing that line, that first evil step. And once you cross that line, once you step into the blood, or once you succumb to the temptation the first time, it becomes so much easier to continue doing that. So if you're thinking, yes, temptation does compel Macbeth's hand, we readers would pity Macbeth. We would feel sorry for him. Can we pity humanity's evil tendencies? On page 187 is when Macbeth realizes, it's his Agnagnarus, his light bulb moment. He realizes what he's been up against when he says, and be these juggling fiends no more believe that palter with us in a double sense. He's talking about the witches here. He realizes those witches are juggling fiends, and they're paltering, they're playing with us in a double sense, fair is foul idea. They keep the word of promise to our ear and break it to our hope. They tempt us, they push us to do things. I'll not fight with thee, Macbeth says. He finally gets it, like, oh my goodness, I can't trust these witches. He gets how temptation has ruined him. Agnagnarus, can we pity him? Evil is mysterious. We do have to wonder why are crimes committed? Why do we humans do evil even though we know it's evil? Perhaps we could say it's unanswerable. It probably has a lot to do with ambition and temptation, and that seems to be what Shakespeare is telling us. Evil is mysterious. Evil is unnatural. We are good people. Most people are good. Isn't there a country song about that? Most people are good. And so evil is unnatural. The play represents this unnatural mystery with the inclusion of all of the unnatural in the play and the consequences that results from all of these unnatural events, the chaos that results. We still do have to wonder, why are people so ambitious that we are driven to commit crimes or to do evil or to harm someone else to get what we want? Is it an unnatural part of human nature, like a paradox of mankind? Let's think about all of the unnatural that is included in the play. And I've got a whole list here. We've got the witches. They're skinny bearded hags in league with Satan. They're tempters to be avoided. And Macbeth connects with these witches. We have the paradoxes running through the play. These are unnatural when opposites are juxtaposed, meaning they're shoved together, like fair is foul. There are daggers in men's smile. Be the flower, but the serpent underneath. All of the paradoxes are unnatural. The gender roles in this play, that they are reversed whenever Macbeth and Lady Macbeth are on stage. It's the opposite gender roles than what the audience members in the 1600s would have expected. Lady Macbeth vows to tear her baby from her breast and dash its brains out. Women are supposed to be nurturing, right? Macbeth is supposed to be making all the decisions, but Lady Macbeth is at the beginning. Night is included in all of the unnatural and evil. All the pleasantness of night, like sleep, refreshing, love, All of those things are obliterated when Macbeth says that he will sleep no more. Darkness, we have during the day it's still dark, right? There are voices, those witches and the spirits that rise out of the cauldron, the hallucinations, the ghosts, a Banquo, not only to create an atmosphere of horror, but to express Macbeth and Lady Macbeth's surrender to evil and their subsequent despair. So, and there's more, you guys, we could list more unnatural than this. The point is, evil is unnatural, but it is so present in our life. It's like the underbelly of humanity. And temptation fits into this puzzle too. It's a part of us, which emphasizes the paradox present in the play. We humans, we are capable of so much good and so much beauty, but we also have it in us to be evil, especially in the face of ambition and temptation. What are we willing to do to get what we think we want? Fair is foul, foul is fair. We just create toil and trouble. And so these driving questions: who prevails and how? Well, Macbeth is dead in spirit. Even from Act 2, he is dead in spirit. His soul has sunk into the dark night. He risks all. He gains nothing. Yes, he gets the crown, but he can't enjoy it. He loses everything. He loses his relationship with his wife. He loses the respect and the esteem that he has in his country. He loses his titles. Murdering Duncan murdered more than just sleep for Macbeth. He has destroyed himself, but not only himself, he has destroyed his own country. Oh, bleed, Scotland, bleed. Why do humans commit evil acts even when we know they are evil? What is Shakespeare's goal? What is he trying to say about us humans? Well, evil is just as mysterious as it is real. Evil is a very real part of human nature. And Shakespeare seems to be saying that this inherent or this naturally existing evil within us, that it's unnatural. And there's the paradox. It's in us naturally, but it's so unnatural for us beautiful creatures to be so evil. This hints at naturalism. Do you remember naturalism? We read about this before Sophocles. We see in Oedipus too, it's a very pessimistic outlook about life, that life will get us. It will beat us down, and there's nothing that we can do to avoid it. It's chilling when thinking about it, like Shakespeare encourages us to, that this beatdown, it's the result of our own ambition and our own tendency to fall to temptation. Like we're bringing it on ourselves. We may not know if there are truly evil people or just people with bad judgment, or if we all have this scary ability to commit evil when tempted to do so. But we do know that evil exists in our world. And we know that temptation also exists and that it's a driving force. Like if your phone buzzes in your pocket, how tempted are you to take it out, even if you're sitting next to that best friend of yours and you don't want to go away from that conversation? Like even in minor forms, temptation is here. Hence the theme of this play. Evil exists. It's in us. Even the best of us. And there's the paradox. Fair is foul. Daggers in men's smiles. Not so happy, yet much happier, lesser and greater. And ironically, the world may be a wicked place. The deck may be stacked against us. But the tragic action demonstrates that the human creature is capable of extraordinary heroism and endurance. How does Macbeth keep on keeping on as this play goes and his life unravels? And he even says, I'm stepped into blood so far, I can't even go back anymore. Yet he keeps going. Is that the power of ambition and temptation in our world? And how do we respond to that? Can you pity Macbeth? Can you see yourself falling to temptation and ambition like we see Macbeth falling to temptation and ambition?